Here's a question for you. What strikes you when you hear this rather philosophical, literary description of human life? Just call out some words. What strikes you? Getting older.
The insight and the wisdom are timeless.
Is wisdom and insight are timeless. Contradiction. All emotions are valid. Nothing is forever. If we keep going, you can just preach the whole sermon. Thank you for responding. We do have responses, right, gutturally in a sense, when we hear something like this. And so when we consider a slate of apparent opposites, we can't help but cringe at the one set of them, and we gravitate towards the other, right? But tell me, who really wants to consider a season of hurt or tearing down or, heaven forbid, of hatred? And yet, there it is. We persuade ourselves that certainly we must live or strive to live in the season of birth, not death, laughter and not weeping, seeking, not losing, peace and definitely not hostility. Our very life is marinated in the desire for healing and building and gathering and love. In a word, evolving into better human beings, navigating our world more successfully. And we're not completely wrong in that pursuit. If we consider this text as being prescriptive for a life of seasons, we would need to pursue mourning as wholeheartedly as dancing, scattering stones as vigorously as gathering them together. The biblical texts that fall into the literary or poetic category in which Ecclesiastes is situated are not prescriptive but descriptive. And this is a big difference in understanding. If we read everything as a rule book or as prescribed ways of living, the impact on our lives is entirely different. We know that rules do not comprise even a fraction of what we need to develop as human beings. Rules provide a parameter, but they do not breathe life. A descriptive text, however, helps us to understand our human condition, how we experience life, not necessarily how to. It's when these two are blurred, prescriptive and descriptive, that we run into trouble. Taking major portions of sacred texts as primarily prescriptive, that means as a rule book, quickly devolves into fundamentalist prisons. It is not difficult to see this text from Ecclesiastes as descriptive, is it? We have seen many of these seasons. We are poised to see many more. Understanding our own experiences as well as our community, national and global events, as reflecting one of these seasons is freeing and at the same time unifying. This season pertains to all of human life, not just Asian or African or American or indigenous, not merely ancient and not exclusively 21st century. This is our human condition. This is our lot and our invitation. But we are in danger. Striving for the season that we consider desirable can become our obsession. If we do not take time to step back and observe what is happening within ourselves and our culture and our world, we will begin to try constructing the seasons that we want. If we don't accept death and hurt, weeping and losing, and a dearth of words in the face of devastation as deeply human spiritual experiences. We will attempt to demand healing on our timetable. We will resort to flimsy sitcom laughter, and we will speak incessantly without having anything to say. We have become so good at denying seasons in our lives that we do not want, we have created new language for that, the language of substitution. We substitute happiness for joy. We substitute entertainment for restorative activity. We substitute knowledge for true wisdom. We substitute individualism for community. It is the somber-hued seasons of life that offer refinement for the soul, understanding our place in time, contentment in the rough and the smooth textures of experience. The full solar experience of laughter and dancing and building warm us on our journey. It also threatens to overheat us, just as the noontime sun in midsummer. We need the ebb and flow, the cooling of the seasons so that we can decompress, grieve losses, become honest about our crippled souls which need freeing or simply hibernation, a time to cocoon, to refuel for another season. But we are drawn to substitutes. Margarine for butter, saccharin for honey, self-care for rest, and efficiency for effectiveness. The more challenging our interpersonal, political, and experiential landscape becomes, the more tempted we will be to grasp at substitute, to momentarily divert our attention, to provide meager sustenance, and convince us either that there is no hope or that forcing a more positive season is actually possible. As we seek ways forward in this rapidly changing world, we have to begin with what stands in the way of not only surviving, but of flourishing, individually, as a church community, and as a culture. One of the blocks to flourishing is our penchant for cheap substitutes. So this is a season to reframe our worldview. That might sound very philosophical, but really it involves very normal things, like learning how to pay attention, to be alert, to learn how to tend to all of creation, because we cannot heal if not all is healed. Our first step in reframing our worldview is learning to pay attention, learning how to be truly alert. Another word for that is noticing, being present in this moment, in this place. One way we can do that is starting very close to home with ourselves. In a season such as this, it's crucial to acknowledge that discomfort and pain and brokenness are great teachers. I'll give you a very simple example. For decades, I've had pain in my neck, and I mean that literally, a literal pain in the neck. Not constant, not excruciating, just recurring and sometimes hampering. When this discomfort began to impact my runs and my power walks, I began looking for insight. I discovered a very specific branch of physical therapy through which I have learned a lot about how bodies work. Had I never had any pain, I would likely never have discovered some of the intricacies of the human body, the nervous system, the relation to stress, and emotional well-being. Do I like dealing with pain? No, I'm not going to lie. I'd rather be pain-free. Has it given me a new understanding of so many layers of human wholeness I may otherwise have not discovered? Absolutely. And it continues to do that. And now I have new responsibilities. I need to put this new insight into practice. That takes time. Everything from exercise to hydration to meditation and mindfulness and to rest. Brokenness, or in my case, discomfort or pain, have become a teacher. In the same way, we must pay attention, be alert to exactly what the pain, the dis-ease, the threat is. Looking away will seem successful, but only as long as it doesn't impact us directly. Just like the discomfort in my neck could be ignored, and I did ignore it, until it pushed itself into the foreground, and then I needed to deal with it. If we look away or ignore, we are losing a lot of time. Remember this when you hear about what is promised in the months and years ahead. But we have substitutes. Instead of facing what it is we are dealing with, we can choose substitutes of hiding from it. Or we can wear our pain, our discomfort, our dysfunction as a badge of honor. Neither substitute will move us toward wholeness. I invite you to welcome, as well as you can, this season of discomfort and pain and brokenness as a teacher. Become curious about it. Learn. It's a season we can embrace as underscoring our humanity. Or it's a season that we try to mortar over with self-pity or blame or guilt or excuses on the one hand, or distraction, noise, and hyperactivity on the other. Breathe. Embrace. Be curious. Pay attention. Second, we will never reframe our own worldview unless we listen to and heed the wisdom of others. One of the most difficult things for people of this culture is to learn from those who are different from ourselves. And by learning, I mean changing our perspectives and the way we live. We are certain of our exceptionalism, even if it is not conscious or intentional. It's simply in the DNA of this nation. Given our history, it's understandable that one of the most challenging people groups to learn from are those who white colonists have driven to genocide on this soil, the Native American people. We have substituted rugged individualism for community with all people and with all of nature. To reframe our worldview, which incidentally can and should fully reflect divine creation, we are called upon to abandon the seductive attitude of individualism and exceptionalism and exchange it for humility to learn in an expanded community. Randy and Edith Woodley are recognized Indigenous elders and wisdom keepers in their community in Central Oregon. Edith is an Eastern Shoshone tribal member raised on the Wind River Indian Reservation in Wyoming. Randy was raised near Detroit, Michigan, and is a Cherokee descendant recognized by the United Ketawa Band of Cherokee Indians in Oklahoma. Edith and Randy have dedicated 3 decades to Elohe, which is a Cherokee Indian word meaning harmony, wholeness, abundance, and peace. Elohe. The Woodleys contend that, and I quote, "The values of the Western worldview will not sustain us through the coming generations. The Western worldview is at odds with a sustainable world, a sustainable earth, We must seek to convert ourselves to a more indigenous worldview with indigenous values if we hope to regain and retain our place as co-sustainers of the earth. The earth will no doubt survive. The question is, will we? The Elohe Indigenous Center for Earth Justice, located near Portland, Oregon, is a place where educating mind, spirit, and body is central. Elohe's mission is to live in harmony with the land using Native American traditional indigenous understanding. Edith is a mentor and speaker on issues concerning indigenous spirituality and creation. She is also a farmer, a mother, and a grandmother. Randy is a father, grandfather, and distinguished professor of faith and culture and director of intercultural and indigenous studies at George Fox University and Portland Seminary. Together, the Woodleys are restorers of faith in the gifts of Native American belief and practice, which are desperately needed by the non-Native population. Will we listen to leaders such as the Woodleys? Will we entertain the possibility of change in this season of scattered stones, of throwing away, of hostility? Whether we truly become willing to reframe our worldview will depend on whether we listen to and learn from the wisdom of others, even those that we have relegated to a place of invisibility and irrelevance. The earth will no doubt survive. The question is, will we? Third, if and when we come to understanding the necessity of reframing our worldview, giving up our devotion to substitutes, we will need to expand rather than curtail our connection. If we read our text from Ecclesiastes 3 as descriptive and not prescriptive, we have a starting point. It is not that we invite loss and hardship and hatred. It is that we look at humanity and recognize ourselves within these seasons. Coming to a full realization of what this means will require us to expand our own understanding, our openness to others, and our embrace of our good earth. But it should go without saying, expanding connections must never endanger people or our earth, nor can it trample the common good. Here's one example of expanding connection. The Western worldview, to a greater or lesser degree depending on regions, has narrowed our expression of family to mean the nuclear family or the traditional family. It goes further than limiting this definition of family to one man, one woman, and their children. Even biological relatives, such as grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, are exempt from this connection. What do we lose when we limit our focus to this small, isolated group of humans? In addition, we must ask, what do we lose when we limit our focus to this isolated unit, which has led to isolated communities, isolated expressions of faith, isolated regions within a nation? Beyond that, what do we lose when we limit our connectivity to only those we are related to by blood, or only those who express values and viewpoints that are similar to ours? And even beyond that, what have we lost in completely amputating all of creation from our understanding of family? Draw on the wisdom of Randy and Edith Woodley once more. Quote, traditional Native Americans feel a sense of interconnectedness at a deep level. Native Americans, they connect the physical to the emotional to the spiritual, and ourselves to one another and the natural world. They connect the whole community of creation to our civic responsibilities. In indigenous thinking, there is no such thing as separation of one part of the other in life? What if we once again saw ourselves as family to the whole community of creation? We must come to the realization that all of the world is our relation, end quote. We have substituted nuclear family for relations. And in so doing, have not only cut ourselves off from other humans, but from nature herself. I firmly believe that having cut ourselves off from one another and from nature is at the heart of a widespread feeling of disconnect from God. To reframe our worldview, we can sing, "Draw the Circle Wide," remembering especially the unbreakable interconnection with those not like ourselves. In light of this deep interconnectedness, we can sing, "We are one," expanding that further to include our connection with Mother Earth and everything we stand next to, find nourishment from, and must protect with a respectful lifestyle. There is a time for everything, a season for every purpose under heaven. Remember, these are descriptive words and not prescriptive. They're here to help us understand our human condition. Which season are we in? It is not a comfortable season, but it is a human season and a season within nature. We have the choice to look at where we are with a calm and mindful perspective, determined to embrace what is real rather than scrambling to find a substitute. Our pursuit of substitutes has already brought us to the brink, emotionally, spiritually, politically, and as an earth community. To whom will we look? Which understanding of the divine will we embrace? What substitutes will we identify and reject? Which tall tale must we abandon in order to recognize a sustainable and a sustaining story? We are human. We also contain the spark of the divine, the stardust of the cosmos, the rich witness of sages and wisdom keepers. I invite us all to be alert, to a humility that welcomes all as our teachers, whether dark or light. I welcome you, I invite you to an assignment that continues throughout our lives and will be carried forward by those who follow after us. May it be so.